Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning and welcome to NPTEL's course on communication skills. Today we will be discussing a very important aspect of communication skills, and if you remember, initially we talked about communication skills in terms of oral skills as well as written skills. Today an important aspect of written skills, that is report writing, will be discussed. Report writing is a very integral part of communication skills. I will be telling you why we are going to have this as a major component in this. Now, before we start, what are we going to have in this module? So, this is module number 6 and this is the first lecture. We will be having one more lecture on the same module. Now, in this module, first we will talk about the significance of reports. Why should you write reports? What is the need for it? What is the necessity for writing reports? And in what way this can become a very integral aspect of communication skills. Then followed by this, we will be trying to discuss about the characteristics and definition of report itself. What makes a report report, and how it is different from the common reports that we talk about in day to day life, and then the types of reports, oral report, written report, and what kind of report that I am going to focus on, considering the fact that most of you are professionally aspiring for some jobs, most of you are students who are listening to this. I am focusing particularly on the technical aspect of writing a report, or we will be focusing more on technical report. And then while focusing on that, I will also talk to you about the structure of reports, and then what points, how many elements of these reports you should keep in mind when you are going to write a report. Now, just to begin with, why should you write reports? What is the need for reports? Now, once you get a job, once you land up any job, once you enter into the professional arena, what happens is 70 to 80% of your time is entirely spent either in reading or in writing or in interpreting reports or simply preparing for reports. Now, that is the way you are going to spend your time, about 70 to 80% only in dealing with reports. You will not believe this unless I am going to tell you what types of report that you are going to deal with, and once I tell this you will understand. Simply speaking, what do we mean by this reports? What is it that you will be dealing, spending your 70 to 85% of time? Any kind of factual accounts, either oral or written, dealing objectively with certain aspects of business or human relationships, dealing objectively with certain aspects of business or human relationships also. Now, any kind of this factual observation produced in a oral or in written form is what I call as report. But as I said, why should you spend about 70 to 80% of time in this, and what is the general need, and what kind of profession is that you will be spending so much time? Now, you should understand that irrespective of any profession that you go, so today's job scenario is like that, you will be asked to write or read reports, or as I said before, not just it is reading, but also it is interpreting and commenting, analyzing reports, and more than that, even preparing for the reports. Either an engineer or a business executive, as I said, spends about 75% of his time on reports, and more than spending this much time, the important decisions which are being made in most of the companies, whether it is multinational corporation or a private sector or a public sector, whatever it is, the decisions which are made are all based by recommendations made by committee reports. Sometimes reports are not written by a single individual, committees are being formed for writing reports, and these committees actually suggest further recommendations. Now, many actions are taken based on these recommendations, and you will be part of this integral committee making suggestions, recommendations, and that is why you need to know how to write a good report. Now, in this sense, when you learn how to write a report, it trains you as a writer in a very planned and orderly manner to deal with procedures and logical presentation of ideas and information. So, it trains the writer in planned and orderly procedures and logical presentation of ideas and information. Report writing develops the power of discrimination, organization, judgment and communication. I repeat, it develops the power of discrimination. What does it mean? Your ability to understand what factor is genuine, what is true, what is real and what is not real, what is unreal, what is media fabricated, what is corroborated by false facts. So, your ability to discriminate the right from the wrong, and then to organize those discriminated ideas in proper coherent manner, and then pass your judgment saying that this is the right thing and this is the wrong thing, putting that judgment and using your communication skills to present those judgmental ideas. Now, as I said, I am focusing more on technical reports because most of you need technical reports. Now, when we talk about technical reports, we need to know before in general what do I mean by report, what are the characteristics and how do we define reports. Now, when we say a report, if you go to the root meaning of this word report, it comes from reporter, which means to carry back. So, in ancient times and even now, anybody who is just coming to you and giving you some kind of information, reporting rather in a slightly objective manner will amount to report. A report thus is a description of an event carried back to someone who was not present on the scene. A colleague of yours comes to you in the morning and tells that she met with an accident, and then you ask how it happened, and then she starts describing the entire event. Now, this description of something that happened in which you were not present at the time amounts to a report. In a very funny sense, even gossips will amount to reports. Rumors telling somebody has an affair with somebody or eloped with somebody, all these kind of things are also a report because you are not actually present at that time and somebody is telling you. But the only difference between a gossip and the kind of technical report that I am trying to make you familiarize with is that gossip has no objective facts, it is based entirely on rumors, whereas technical report is based on objective facts, scientific analysis and your own judgment based on that, your own recommendations followed by that. So, having understood this different from a simple gossip and then a seriously objective kind of report. Now, go further on this report. Apart from the normal orally reported ones, generally when we talk about reports, we also refer to mini memorandums, shortly named as memos, letters, most of the letters written narrating some incidents which happened, most of these letters or reports, even news items, analysis of exam results, analysis of election results. So, these are all actually reports either given to you in the form of oral presentation through media or given to you sometimes in the form of published printed reports, annual reports of companies, etc. Now, our concern is quite scientific. So, we are more or less concerned about the kind of reports that is highly formal, which will be used by business executives, administrators, and most of the times they are supposed to use these reports as part of their day to day activities, duties. Okay. Now, this is the kind of report that I am going to talk to you and then make you quite familiar with. Now, let us take a quick look at the definition of report. The definition also emanates from the characteristics of report, and if you look at that, all these technical reports are result of careful investigation, sound thinking, logical organization, and clear and formal writing. So, in that sense, if you ask what is a report is a formal communication written for a specific purpose. Mind you, it is formal communication written for a specific purpose. It includes a description of procedures followed by collection and analysis of data, the significance, the conclusions drawn from them, and recommendations if required. Conclusions drawn from them and recommendations if required. So, sometimes you will be asked to give recommendations, sometimes you may not be asked to give recommendations. In that sense, you do not have to actually give recommendations, but you should also understand that it is not like poetry writing. It is not an outburst of powerful feelings. Let us say you confronted with a fire accident that happened just before your eyes, but as the supervisor of that site, you are asked to give an objective report. Now, so even though your heart may be fuming figuratively, that you are quite upset about the event that happened, you cannot let your emotions run riot as you could do in a poetry writing. Here you are not supposed to let your emotions run loosely. You have to control the emotions and you have to present it in a very objective manner. You cannot use abusive language, you cannot charge somebody just like that, but you have to use facts to prove even if somebody was guilty. Let us say somebody threw a cigarette, okay, and then this fell on something and then it caught fire and then this fellow escaped, but you need to prove using the duty chart, using some evidences, using some witnesses that it was this person who was responsible for this, instead of using a kind of unparliamentary language in report. So, report is not an outburst of powerful feelings, and a report writer should examine and present objectively the data collected. His conclusions and recommendations are strictly based on the facts included in the report. So, if you do not have facts, you cannot form conclusions which are emotionally conditioned. You cannot say I intuitively feel that this fellow is the one who actually is the culprit. You cannot say that in report. Your intuition, if at all, has to be again backed up by objective facts, scientific analysis, and if required certain observations based systematically and continuously. Look at another interesting definition, description, characteristic of report that comes from Shearing way back in 1965. He said that a report is like a bathing suit, or rather like this swimming suit, this bikini kind of dress, where he says it covers everything that has to be covered, but nothing more. So, what he means by this, it does not distract attention from the content by unnecessary frills. So, it is just like this lady wearing a bathing suit. So, no frills, no extra decoration, no diversions, but as he says it covers the exact point, what is required is covered. Now, let us take a quick look at the types of reports. When we talk about reports, basically as I said at the beginning, you have oral report and written report. Now, anything that is brought back to you orally is oral report, and anything that is given to you in written form printed form, typed form is written report. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Why would one go for oral report? Why would one go for written report? In terms of oral report, it is face to face communication. So, the advantage that you have in face to face communication is very much prominent here also. Like what? For example, when somebody is trying to tell a lie and looking at the facial expressions, you will be able to detect that this person is trying to tell a lie in oral communication as well as this one. Something seen or observed is brought to you, but the disadvantage in this case, unless it is recorded, unless it is taken on a camera, unless it is taken on a video and it cannot be reproduced, then it loses its value, it becomes ephemeral. So, in case of the receiver, sometimes if he loses, the time is lost and then the receiver is not able to reproduce it properly, not with graphic details. So, this is the disadvantage. In case of written, which generally we recommend for technical reports, here there is permanency, it is more accurate and permanent, and the reader can skim the abstract and can be referred back time and again. Whenever the reader wants to read that again, he can go back and the reader feels that, oh, I read this 5 years before, but I forgot, he can go back. But in case of oral report, unless it is recorded properly and stored properly, you cannot retrieve that information. So, that is the problem with oral report, and hence it is mandatory in formal communication that it has to become written report in printed form, in typed form. Now, in written report again we have formal and informal aspect of written report. Now, under formal we have informational report, that is fully dealing with passing information, or analytical and or interpretive report, where analysis is done and interpretations are given to you. On the other side, the informal one, we do not have many, but in the formal side we also have this routine reports. So, the day to day activities sometimes are reported and they are considered under routine reports. Now, let us look at these reports very briefly. Informational reports generally contain only the data collected or the facts observed. Informational reports generally contain only the data collected or the facts observed. Now, what do? They present the situation as it is and not as it should be, which means they will just quantify the fact, whatever is observed will be given to you, but they will not say anything as how you should go ahead in future, and all that will not be given to you, because it is basically informational. So, it will not give you any conclusions or any recommendations, whereas in case of interpretive or analytical kind of report, the facts are given to you with evaluation, in the sense they are evaluated. Okay. You can see the progress, how it is being evaluated time and again. The data gets interpreted, analyzed, and the reporter's conclusions and recommendations are given to you for future actions. What should you do in future is given to you, followed by the routine report, where it is formal, but it is written in prescribed form. More or less it is just like putting tick marks or cross marks, just like a checklist. For example, in the site engineer is asked to give a report of the workers who came in time, not in time, what time they broke, how much work was done. So, most of the things were just in tick form, cross form. So, routine one. even the confidential report or performance appraisal report of employees, where the manager or the supervisor or the higher authority is supposed to just put tick mark, excellent, very good, good, poor. So, one has to just keep on putting the tick marks. So, here there is no extra facts are added, whatever is there one has to choose, and it is of routine nature, day to day nature. Once in 6 months it is done, once in a year it is done. For example, construction of a dam, construction of a road, again the site engineer is supposed to give this routine report, everyday report, weekly report to the concerned higher authority. So, all these things will come under this. So, periodic and progress reports, inspection reports. Inspection reports, for example, let us say between two companies, one company sent ice creams on a truck, and then the other vendor who received it says that the ice creams came in spoiled condition. Now, you as the concerned supervisor of the site or the inspector is asked to go and examine what happened. Now, you find out information that on the way the truck had a minor accident, so it stopped for quite some time. The cooling that was given inside the refrigerator did not work properly, because of that the ice creams were spoiled. So, you get all the facts and produce it. This is called as inspection report. Something went wrong, you go and then identify whether it went wrong, for what reason, and then you produce it. Same thing happens, suppose something is installed in a site, a new equipment, again you may ask to go check whether it has been installed properly or not, inspect it and then send us the report. So, this is what we call as inspection report. Now, time to take a quick look at the structure of reports. Now, instead of just telling you report contains this, that, what I have done is I have tried to divide that into 3 broad categories, and then each category has some elements. Now, if you remember, for example, that there are 17 elements in a good report, in a standard report, and these elements can be classified into 3 major categories: preliminary parts, main text and supplementary parts. Preliminary parts are the matter which will come in the front. So, they begin, they are at the introductory part, that is why we call them as front matter or preliminary part. The main text is the body, okay, which is the fulcrum, and then this is followed by the supplementary parts, what will come later. Now, let us look at the preliminary parts, what are the elements, and then the remaining part of the lecture we are going to look at each part very quickly with some suitable examples. Look at the first one, preliminary parts, the cover page or the cover, followed by title page, and then third, copyright notice, 4, acknowledgements, 5, authorization letter, 6, table of contents, 7, list of illustrations, 8, synopsis or executive summary, sometimes just called as abstract also. Now, on the main text we have the 9th item, that is introduction, followed by the 10th item, which is the major body, which deals with discussion and description, and the 11th element is conclusions, and 12th one is recommendations. This is followed by supplementary parts, the third component of any good standard report. Now, supplementary parts themselves contain about 5 components. The 13th item here is appendixes, sometimes single one is used, then it is appendix, followed by references, and then bibliography, and last 2 items in this, glossary and index. Now, let us take a quick look at each one of these items and it becomes familiar to you, and then you know how to use them. Now, talking about cover, most of the companies, if you are working in a company, most of the companies will tell you to use their standard cover, and this cover will have logo, the company's name, the company's watermark if possible, and they would have even prescribed the color and all that should be used. Now, if it is prescribed one, it is mandatory that you use this, but in case that you are not representing any company and the company does not ask you to use a cover, then you are free to choose your own cover. But even in this case, since report is of a very highly intellectual, sensitive, capable matter, generally flowery covers are not used, very highly ornamental, shiny covers are not used at all. Now, here although you can use a heavy paper or a slight cardboard kind of material, the light colored ones are preferred, generally light grey, light pink, light green, light cream, mostly it is the light color or generally any neutral colored ones or white colored ones, these are the preferred ones. So, color is just not diverting the attention and rather it is just highlighting what is there in the form of title. Apart from doing this, what is the purpose of cover? It is a common sense purpose that it helps the manuscript from regular wear and tear, it helps it from any kind of damage. What does it carry? What does it contain? One, the title itself, followed by the writer or the author's name, and then the submission date in which it was submitted, followed by any classification. So, secret, top secret, for your eyes only, classified information and so on. Number, sometimes each person will be assigned a project number. So, if you are given that project number, that number is also mentioned there. One important thing that should be noted is that the inside of the front and back of this cover is generally left blank, nothing is written here. Followed by this, we have the title page, and in this title page, this is placed in the first right hand page of a report. So, that means when you open it, this is the first right hand page of a report, you see the title page, and it contains detailed information of whatever you have given in the front page. Rather, additional information could also be given here. How? It gives the full title. So, in the title page sometimes they give a shortened title to make it quite attractive, but inside the full title, the long heading including the subtitle is given here, followed by name and address of the authors, the complete address, the department, institution that asked them to produce it. So, that address is given there, and the name of the authority who sanctioned it, could be the supervisor, it could be the managing director, whomever it is, or it could be a government body like MHRD. So, whichever asked them to produce this, so that information is also given, followed by the project number or the contract number that has been assigned to this, and the approvals if any. One line it is briefly mentioned, approved by so and so, followed by distribution list. What does it mean? To whom does it belong to which group is it submitted, who should read this, and then date, that is the date in which it is actually submitted. Now, once you cross this, the next important thing, especially if you are going to publish it, is the copyright notice. Now, in today's world where Wikipedia is quite prominent, and then people feel that you can just take anything, cut, paste and then put it. So, copyright is misread as right to copy. So, it does not mean right to copy something. As a matter of right, I am copying. So, it does not mean that. It means that you have produced something originally and you own that copy, and that copy cannot be reproduced without your permission, and sometimes one has to pay royalty if you have really produced a tremendous work or a original report, a path breaking report, and the recommendations are worthy. So, then they need to give you copyright, and this is used especially if you are going to publish this. It is marked by this sign, copyright sign, and then the year is mentioned, the name of the person who owns this copyright is also mentioned, and with the typical note which follows, which you have seen in most of the books. When you open the title page, on the back of this title page you see this copyright note. All rights are reserved. No part of this report may be reproduced in any form or by any means without permission in writing from the publisher. Followed by this, you need to acknowledge. So, we have acknowledgements. You need to acknowledge the people who helped you write this report. So, here you make a list of the names of persons and organizations that helped you in the production of the report. Even libraries that you consulted, librarians who helped you in giving you materials, even people who helped you in photocopying a very valuable sensitive information. So, these people you need to acknowledge. So, you acknowledge them and indicate the permission taken for copyright material. So, what does it mean? When you quote from somebody, when you take material from somebody, you take prior permission before publishing that material, and then you say that you are thankful to so and so for giving you the permission to do this. Followed by this, we have the authorization letter, which means the written authorization either in the form of a letter or in the form of a memo, short for memorandum, okay, long for memorandum, shortly called as memo. So, requesting the preparation of the report. So, your boss or some authority has authorized you to do this. So, that letter copy is also produced, and this letter specifies the problem, the scope, the duration, that is the time in which it should be finished, 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, 5-year project, the budget restriction, how much can you use, how much you are restricted. So, that will be mentioned, and specific instructions, the methodology that has to be followed, the statistical information that has to be collected, followed by the deadline, the time in which it should be submitted. Now, after acknowledging, the next thing that comes is the table of contents, or shortly referred to or simply referred to as contents. Here it outlines the coverage, the sequence and significance of information in the report. So, it will be usually mentioned in the form of sometimes chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6, beginning with preface, acknowledgements, etc., etc., ending with the back matter, that is conclusion, recommendations, glossary, index, etc. You need to do it only if it is exceeding 10 pages. If it is a short one, you can do away with this. Then what does it do? It gives a kind of bird's eye view, a kind of quick overview for the reader. The reader can decide from that page itself what he is really interested in. In an entire book, lengthy book of long written report, he can directly decide, let me read only the 4th unit or the 4th chapter and the 5th point of this chapter. I am more interested in this. He can go directly to that. So, that is the aim of this, to make the reader identify easily a specific topic that he or she might be interested in, followed by the 7th element, list of illustrations. Now, list of illustrations will detail, list all the figures. Figures here refer to all the visual aids, pictures, graphic designs, photographs, all that you have drawn, photographed and kept, reproduced, everything will come under these figures, and tables. In case the figures and tables are going to spread through 2-3 pages and will not come within a single page, what you should do is you should make separate list for tables and separate list for figures. Keep in mind that you need to do that if only they exceed a page, otherwise it is not required. The next item is synopsis or executive summary, which comes under again preliminary parts. It is also shortly called as abstract. In fact, you actually give the abstract, the condensed format of the report. It tells in concentrated form what the report is about. The extent of coverage is also mentioned here, and in summary it tries to give the substance of the report. It presents the report in a nutshell. It tries to tell you without any illustrations and explanations, and it also talks about the method of analysis, the significant findings, important conclusions and major recommendations. Now, the next important part is the main text, and the main text starts with the introduction. Under introduction, what is done is the main body gets started. Here, if you are the writer, you offer a good starting point and tell your reader what the report is about, and you also inform about previous works and highlight the new grounds covered in the present study. Introduction sets the scene and prepares the reader to follow and comprehend the information. It includes the following: the historical and technical survey. The historical and technical survey, that is how it started, how it went on, both in a chronological sense and also in a technological sense, and it gives the background that way. It offers the scope of study, followed by discussing the specifying the limitations of the study and its relevance also. It also deals with the methods of collecting data and their sources and definition of special terms and symbols. Now, under main text, the next point that we need to talk about is body. The body will deal with discussion or description. The major component of the main text of report is the body, which contains the discussion or description part of the report. In terms of length, this is the lengthiest part of a report, whereas front matter, although I gave lot of elements in that, will just come to in some case just 5-6 pages, but in a lengthy report this can go even about 80 pages, 100 pages, depending on the length of the report. Now, considering this, what is happening here? This contains the central ideas and arguments of the report with almost all the illustrations and tables. The body presents the data in an organized form, discusses their significance and analyzes the results. If the data are too numerous, the data is not presented in the main body, but it is given in the appendix. Why we will discuss when we go to appendix, but right now just sufficient to tell you this will interrupt the main flow of thought ideas. Just to avoid it, it is given in the appendix. Then you can also use inside footnotes or parenthetical statements. Then generally the backward order is used here. What does it mean? Now, you started with 1, you went to the lab, you found something. After 6 months, 1 year of experiment analysis, you conducted some data for 2 years and then you got it, but you do not go with what you did at the beginning, but you may rather begin with what you found at the end and then you start enumerating it. So, that is why it is mentioned as backward order. You start with the end at the beginning with your findings and then go on enumerating and explaining why and how you found it and what for you did that experiment or study, whatever it is. Now, the main text ends with the concluding remarks by you, which is mentioned as conclusions, which will actually summarize the main idea and highlight the recommendations. So, there are recommendations which are written separately when they are longer, but if they happen to be shorter, they just come under conclusions, and conclusions will generally serve the function of summarizing whatever went before. If the writer has said something important and the reader has missed it, so this is one more time where the writer can reiterate that important point and then summarize succinctly, so that the reader's mind, it can be reiterated once again, it can be reverted very firmly. Now, the conclusion will also list the course of action for the reader to take. Now, you have narrated an incident, now you are telling what the reader should do after reading that. So, you will also suggest further course of action. All conclusions must be supported by what has gone before, which means no new things will be written there in the conclusion. Whatever is written in the conclusion are actually logical conclusions of what went before in the form of discussion and description in the main body. Now, here you are actually trying to just support what happened before and reinforce all the thought pattern that happened before. So, no new idea will come here if it is not mentioned at all. Nothing new should be added at this stage, and if the number is large, they may be itemized in the descending order of importance. So, if the number is becoming larger in terms of recommendations, then they may be itemized in the descending order of their importance. As I said, if the recommendations are very few, then it goes in conclusions, but if they are larger, then they are written separately. And recommendations by nature, they suggest future course of action for the reader, and sometimes only this part of the report is frequently referred to, especially for taking decisions. So, what you did, how you investigated, what results you brought out, people are not interested, but what you are recommending at the end of it, that is what most of the readers are interested in, and they will directly go to that recommendations, the last few pages of your report, skipping whatever you have written before. So, in that sense, this is a very important part of your report, and this is again listed in the descending order of their importance. The most important one will be coming first, combined with conclusions if only few recommendations are there, otherwise it is given separately, and recommendations are given only if expected to do so. If you remember, I said at the beginning also, you recommend only if you are asked to. You do not pass your judgment if you are not asked to. Then you just present only a kind of informational report. You do not interpret and you give recommendations on the data that you have collected. If the nature of the report also demands, then also you can give recommendations, but otherwise you do not give it, you do not volunteer recommendations on your own. The supplementary parts, that is the back matter of the report, is equally important, so that they give you the scientific evidence of the fact that you really conducted an objective report. What do they conduct? What do they have? The first important thing it contains is appendixes. What is an appendix? An appendix contains materials related to the report, but is too detailed or lengthy to be included in the main text. This means the reader can safely omit reading it without any loss of understanding of the contents or feel disconnected from the main thought flow. So, while reading the report, if you want to give too detailed information about some part of the report, use that in the form of an appendix. Or if you think that it is getting diverted too much, then also you take it to the appendix, to the concluding part, where you can put it safely, and if the reader is interested, he will always go to that part. Now, to give an appendix or not is decided on two factors. What are the two factors? One, whether it sustains the theme and forms an essential and integral part of the report. Does it stand by the theme, and then is it actually forming an essential and integral part of it? So, these aspects are taken care first, and secondly whether it would interrupt the train of the reader's thought if included in the main body, that is, will it cut the thought flow, the reader's flow that he is getting. If it is going to disrupt, then you better keep it at the end. Some quick points: all appendixes should be referred to in the text, be it questionnaires or statistical data etc. They should be always referred to in the form of parenthesis or directly it should be referred to. Then it must be labeled also. For example, appendix A questionnaire, appendix B statistical data collected from this, appendix C etc. etc. So, you label them and then you mention them in the text, which is very important for appendix. This is followed by list of references. What do we have in the list of references? It is actually to give credit and tell that you have not plagiarized from any source. Now, here you give credit to the works that you referred to or quoted, and this is done by citing such works in the text and listing them in alphabetical order at the end. If the number is small, if it is just 1 or 2 references, then you can mention it in the form of footnotes. Footnotes just at the bottom of the page in which they are cited, by putting some asterisks or some star or some kind of mark, and then you can just mention that at the end. Look at this, this is one way of putting that as a footnote. So, you put 1 and down here, but in a reference see the way it is mentioned also: Alan Warner, comma, a short guide to English style, the author's name, full form, title, full form, comma, then the details about the press, publication details, Oxford University Press, comma, London, comma, ELBS edition, comma, year of publication, page numbers that you have referred to. Now, this is a typical example of a reference where commas are used and then the author name is mentioned fully. When we look at bibliography, you will see the difference, that it is separated not by commas but by full stop. Now, bibliography literally means the list of books that you have referred to, but it also by extension refers to the articles or any kind of work that you have referred to. Now, in this case it is alphabetically arranged list of published, unpublished works consulted before or during the preparation of the report. You need to keep the following in mind: 1. The order of writing the names and surnames of authors, the sequence of details and the punctuation marks and the layout. Look at this example, the same example I have used. In this case, the second name comes first or the surname comes first. If you remember, in reference you wrote Alan Warner, here it is Warner Allen, and according to this, that is W, it will be arranged alphabetically. Then a short guide to English style, here there is no change, title of the book. The only difference is it is separated by full stops, not comma. Then the next detail is the edition comes before, the place of publication again separated by a full stop, and here this becomes a separate unit. Place of publication London, and then name of the publisher Oxford University Press, and comma, year of publication 1964, full stop. Now, last 2 items, that is glossary, which is a list of technical words used in the report and their explanations. What happens, sometimes you use jargons, technical words which are not understood by everybody, then you take them separately and offer them in the form of a small dictionary format. So, that is glossary. Now, if the number is again small, it can be explained in footnotes. The inclusion depends on the reader. If the reader is not up to the level in which you have written the report, glossary is a must. Index is again intended to serve as a quick guide to the material of the report. It enables the reader to locate easily any topic, subtopic or important aspect of the contents. So, it comes at the back side and keywords are entered, again arranged in alphabetical order, and then they are cross referenced. Now, all page numbers on which information about an entry is available or mentioned against it. For example, reports, audience for 121, 156 to 57. So, this is mentioned here. Characteristics of report, in this book it is mentioned in these 2 pages extensively, it is also mentioned in this page. So, this is how index will look like, and it will be arranged again according to alphabetical order. Now, towards concluding, I should tell you one point, that the citation method used in this report, there is something called style sheet. You cannot follow anything randomly. There are 2 style sheets which students are supposed to follow. The first one is followed or given by Modern Language Association, shortly called MLA handbook, MLA style book. The second one again students are supposed to follow, especially students of psychology, social sciences, is this American Psychological Association's APA style sheet. Now, generally publishers will be using what is called as the Chicago Manual of Style. Publishers will ask you to follow this style. Now, towards concluding, I should just recapitulate very quickly that in this lecture we try to understand the definition of a report, description of a report, characteristics of a report, and why report is necessary. And towards explaining that, I also try to tell you that we need to understand that in terms of the types of report, and then we studied the various types of report, and we focused more on technical report. Followed by that, we try to understand a technical report in terms of the elements. About 18 elements have been discussed to you, and then these were bifurcated under 3 categories, which could come under preliminary or front matter, main body, main text, followed by the back matter or the supplementary items. Now, once you master this, once you know how to write this comes out of repeated practice. I should conclude by giving you one note of personal gain that you may have, which is generally used for any writing skills. You should know that once you start writing reports, your logical thinking is enhanced. You try to be more and more objective, at the same time you enhance your logical thinking skills, followed by proving your intellectual capacity to write good reports, which will definitely impress your superiors. And today you know that without improving your superiors, you know that you cannot win that promotion, you cannot really climb up in your career. Now, writing skills by and large, and specifically report writing skills, can help you advance in your career tremendously. Although it is laborious, although sometimes some of you may feel that it is quite dull and monotonous, nevertheless mastering this skill and learning from this, learning to think logically, putting your ideas coherently and adhering to the style format, these things will make you highly dependable, highly reliable, highly sought for in any professional situation, and it will give you that cutting edge in any career oriented job where you are likely to be promoted, because the boss needs you. You have become a favorite of the boss because you know how to write good reports, and he may use the reports that written by you, he may ask you to interpret reports for him. So, these skills surely will take you a long way, and with wishing you all the best for becoming a good report writer and fetching that job, I will just very quickly tell you that you can go to some further references of some books which deal with this report writing exclusively. There are 2 books, one by Lessica Raymond, which deals particularly on report writing for business, and there is a simple book written by John Seeley, again on writing reports. The other books which I have been frequently referring to you in communication skills course by Bowie and Courtland on business communication today, and then Andrea Rutherford's basic communication skills, as well as Krishna Mohan's and Sharma's book on business correspondence and report writing. They all have exclusive chapters on report writing. Now, use these books for developing your skills further, and I I thank you so much for your patient listening and paying attention to me for this 1 hour lecture. Thanks. We are meeting again in the next lecture where we deal more about report writing. Thank you.